welcome back, or just plain welcome again. Homesteads and Homeschools is the show you are currently listening to. I'm your host, the Liberty Hippie. Today is episode number 54, which means you can find the show notes at homesteadsandhomeschools.com/054. I hope you all are doing well out there. I'm doing excellent myself. Little sore. Spent the weekend bucking some firewood for next year, and I think we're about all set. It's a nice feeling to have all the wood you need for the next year, to know that you will have enough to be warm. And it's enjoyable. Cutting firewood is something that is enjoyable. If you haven't done it, go do it. It is a good time. It's a good time. Anyway, folks, a couple things before we get rolling here. Appreciate you guys out there clicking on that Amazon link, homesteadsandhomeschools.com/Amazon. You get forwarded through to Amazon. I get a little kickback there, and it helps to kind of balance some of the costs that this show amasses. Not a lot. Costs are not substantial, but there's something. And if I can generate enough income to pay that off, all the better. And it costs you nothing. So I know a lot of podcast folks don't talk about numbers too much. It's kind of all different from one show to the next, from one niche to the next. So I won't talk about them too much, but I will say this. We are looking at getting into 4-digit downloads. We've had a couple months like that, but we're getting closer and closer to having them back to back. So it would be huge if you could help me by pushing this out to your friends, sharing this with your colleagues and your people that you know that would enjoy this show, and help me get that 4-digit download for the month of February, shortest month of the year. Let's get it done. So I will quit jibber jabbering, and we're going to get into this. My guest today is Miss Linnea Gabbard. She is a vet tech out in Arkansas. She works with her husband, who is the vet at the clinic, and they're kind of, they do the prepping thing. They are off grid, and they just built a new clinic for their practice. We'll get to hear some about that. So without further ado, let's go sow those liberty seeds with Miss Linnea Gabbard.
10 long years, 10 more to go. One right in jail, gone, let me go, son. Save your prayers, cry no more. Ain't gonna kill none. Could be the way it was, could be the way it was, could be the way it was strong. Could be a hard way.
My guest today is Miss Linnea Gabbard. She is out there in Arkansas. She's coming on today to talk about some things that her and her husband do at home, and some things they do at work. And so we will get into that. Thank you for coming on today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Fun to be here.
All right. So we're talking a little bit about your background. And now, do you mentioned you kind of fall more on the prepper side of things. Kind of curious where that started. Did you guys, were you in the homestead scene to start, or how did you kind of get your familiarity around that sort of stuff?
Well, it was sort of, so I've always kind of lived inner cities. Like, I grew up in Chicago. I'm very familiar with that life. Not interesting to me, not sustainable. So we both, whenever we met, there found some land with a spring on it. Always had a dream to go ahead and live somewhere out there. It's just, I want to grow my own food. I wanted to manage my own life, essentially. So we went ahead and found that, which we were lucky that had a spring. So built out there. It actually took a long time to put anything down, but the building of the house came from his initial, he's not a big fan of bad weather. We've got tornadoes here, and he's always lived in an underground house. So we decided we kind of built in underground. And then from there, we went, every single choice we've made thus far has been with the sustainability in mind. Okay. So it just grew.
When you say an underground house, what are you talking about? I mean, you're talking about a house cut into a hill with a living roof. You're talking about, bigger basement, tunnel, what do we mean here?
It's okay. This is kind of complicated. So yes, it's essentially, we call it the hobbit hole. So it's on top of a mountain where we live, but we have cut into the hill. So we're not totally underground, but the garage we have, which is large enough to park a fifth wheel trailer in, which is what we have inside the garage. So we've got that in there, and there's like a F3 FEMA shelter in there. And so we are half in ground, and then we do have an upper level that's it's above ground, and there's another driveway up to it. But yeah, we're lodged in the earth.
Very cool. Very cool. I will say, growing up in the Northeast, we had a few tornadoes here and there, little ones, but mostly it was snow, and like, you can deal with that. Like, it's okay, we're gonna have a snowstorm, stay inside, don't go out. But since moving down to Georgia, it's like, tornadoes, and it's just, you have no clue when it's coming. You just kind of like hold on for dear life and hope it doesn't take you away.
And most people don't have basements either in the South for flooding purposes. So you don't really have a lot of choices to mask yourself from that.
Yeah, that was one thing we figured out. We were like, oh, basements are cool. And I always had a basement, and there's no basements down here. And then we're looking around for like what room would be good for, to hang out. And if there's like a tornado, and there's this little closet in the middle of the house, which worked for a little while. And then the kids got bigger, and then two more of them came along, and it was like, well, that doesn't work anymore. So we have to kind of figure it
absolutely.
out. But that's cool. It's impressive to be that equipped for it as you guys are up there.
I mean, it takes time for sure. Time in building.
How long have you guys been working on? Has it been constant production, constant kind of progress forward, or?
Yeah, so essentially we moved out onto the land probably about 4 years ago now. And so we're fully out there. We're still building on the top. And then I foresee this being a long project. There's so many other things we want to add. And you really, since we're always so linked in with one another, and living off the grid is still fairly uncommon, it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while to be where we want to be, I guess. Yeah.
How does that work in terms of building permits and such? I imagine trying to get some of that to dig into the ground as you have, or whatever, might be a little more difficult.
Thus far, it's been kind of awesome because we live out of the city limits. So our property is our property. We have 80 acres. So we can kind of do just about anything we want on there. And we've had little to no, I imagine that the power companies at some point, because we only pay about, because we've got solar arrays at this point, we only pay about $7 a month whenever we truly economize. So, I mean, I'm sure at some point they're not going to like that, but yeah, no, we're free to do what we want.
Awesome. That's another thing, different from like where I grew up, and then, moving down south, the zoning, like once you kind of get out in the county, it's all right. Once you're outside of city limits, it's kind of yours, and you can do as you see fit. Growing up in New York and in upstate New York, it was just, forget it. You gotta have a building permit for everything. It was insane, but that's it's nice to hear that you guys are doing that. Do you do much, in terms of, growing things or animals or that sort of?
Well, so honestly, that's the part which is funny, because we do veterinary medicine, is like the one part we have not gotten to yet. I'd like to have chickens of my own. We're not huge meat eaters. So, I don't think we're going to go that route, but I do love eggs. We like to have that. I wouldn't mind having goats. We wouldn't, and then, growing food, of course, and bees too. So, like anything on those levels, we'll be building more and more. But I haven't had a garden in several years, so I think this spring I'm going to go ahead and do that. Kind of forgotten how it works. Yeah. But we'll get there. It's
a little learning curve, but you've done it before. You can remember. So what kind of veterinary medicine do you guys do? Do you work on like dogs, cats, and household pets, or do you do like sort of the farm animal type thing, or?
We don't do the farm animal. There's a lot of that here, but we just do small animals. So basically dogs, cats, we are kind of one of the few clinics that do exotics too. So anything like rodents or birds, we do that as well. There's kind of a high call for that here. And we live right near the zoo, and I've worked with the zoo veterinarian, so we kind of they'll send some strange things our way.
It's interesting. All right, so I guess you mentioned the weather as part of the reason to kind of build as you have. What else? What kind of prodded you in that direction of like, this is my space, and I want to kind of do what I want to do, and I don't know what made you guys really kind of get into it like you have.
Well, we're very so I, without bringing direct politics in it, this is a very easy place to be pro property and pro very much what you want to do. And we are more, I'm a libertarian. We want secure rights for our property. We want to do what we want on there. We won't want to be bound by any of the, like Entergy, our local power company. We don't want to be bound by that. We don't want to be bound by, what we can and can't have. As long as we responsibly utilize our property, it's ours. So, and Arkansas is a pretty easy place to do that. I mean, there's a lot of, for instance, my husband, he builds guns too. So, it's a big, we like to be very self-sufficient and free. So that's kind of another thing. It's kind of maybe a little bit of not really a kick in the face, but we kind of we want to show you, like, we don't need you, we really don't need our city at this point. So that's kind of where that's why it continues.
Good deal. Yeah, I can understand that. 100%.
Yes.
All right. So you're off. How off the grid are you? Are you like off the grid? Are you still kind of sometimes when it's dark and gloomy, or what does that setup look like for you guys?
Well, so we, like I said, pretty much if we economize, we only pay $7 a month to the power company. And that's literally just what it takes to be connected to the power company. Okay. So we don't actually use anything they give us. So we could essentially cut that right off, and we've got a solar array of like 40 solar panels. So 12,000 watts. And we've got backup generator and batteries. So we don't at this point need our energy company. Call that what you will, we still have cell phones and we still have internet. So, but if you really wanted to, we wouldn't need.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you sell, power or electricity back to the power company at all, or?
We don't currently. And we've kind of been looking into that, and I don't know how long, that's going to last, especially, I think recently they said something about probably, I don't think we're going to be able to do that anymore, essentially. I need to look more into it. We've never tried to do it, but I know people do it. I just,
Yeah. Do you generate enough that you could?
We do. Yeah. We use very little.
Yeah. Yeah. That's good. Good deal. I don't know. It's tough. It can be, I imagine.
Oh yeah.
Trying to cut yourselves off there. How was that process? Going from that disconnection process, I guess? Well,
it's funny because we lived in a fifth wheel trailer before this, so I haven't lived in a house in so long. And then, so that essentially living a little bit smaller, which we have enough room, but it's been a gradual process. I'd say probably like 6 years since I've lived anywhere like very modern. And now I'm totally used to it. And we don't have any amenities that we can't use. Like we have lights all the time. Obviously, we do our dryer in the daytime. Because you want enough. But really, other than that, I feel like I've always felt, that's as easy as it can be for people. Just get in your routine and fix it how you want it, and it feels like normal.
Yeah, it's I guess. I don't know. I would love to one day, but maybe when the kids are older, I don't know. I can't imagine trying to finagle that all right now. Yeah.
Yeah. You have to play around with it. In the beginning is not easy. So, but there's just the two of us. Like we don't have, so it's been very easy to, economize that between the two.
How was that learning curve of figuring out how to economize it, or knowing that, okay, it's I'm gonna turn the dryer on and I'm going to try to do it in the morning or something? I mean, like, how did you figure all that stuff out?
There were plenty of days where I had power outages and I didn't have clean clothes, because it's just like, you don't like, I've had several blackout days, but really, it's been fine for the most part. I mean, if you're a really high maintenance person, you have a lot of things you want to run and do. Give it a year. A year is where you really start. So some people are going to be like, turned off by that. But yeah, I'd give it a year. And even now, there's going to be some problems. But I mean, it's kind of what you pay for to not pay for it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. What kind of problems have you guys run into?
Our biggest one, which is something you probably wouldn't run into frequently, is we live in the fifth wheel in the garage at this point. That thing is a power parasite. So that sucks, a lot of, and every now and then in the summer, the lights will go out if we happen to be using a lot of solar power. But really, as long as you have, we've changed all our lights to LED, so we don't really have any problems there anymore. We have a cistern and a spring. One time I think it flooded. Something happened, and we've had issues with that. So, but we've only literally one time with the cistern we have a problem, and that's the water. Comes down to us and by gravity. So we've had one issue with it. But to be honest, I think we're pretty lucky because we kind of have a good amount of amenities. But you'll run into weird things. For sure.
What do you guys do for a toilet? Do you have a composting toilet, or do you have a septic that you had put in, or?
So in the we used to use the fifth wheel one, so you have to literally change that yourself with the black water tank. But now we've got septic. I could see us maybe trying to make it a little more economized, but we do have one of those toilets that have the you can control how much you flush. So we did end up buying one of those.
Yeah. And that's something too, I think, I don't know. I had a septic growing up, and I don't remember my parents ever having to pump it out. No, ever. Neither. It always just, but a lot of people I talk to, they're getting it pumped, every 3 years, every 5 years. And it's recommended that you get it pumped, fairly frequently. And I'm just kind of, I don't know if that's a scam, or if that's really, people are just putting stuff down there that doesn't belong there, or what. But
I feel like that's probably it. If you have a large family and people are flushing more than they should. I don't know. Yeah, I don't remember a lot of that either. So maybe that's why I'm not taking action at this point, because I'm I don't feel like it was an issue. But
yeah, no, definitely not. But all right. So you are a vet tech. Your husband's a vet. Did that play into any of your decision making coming into your?
Maybe in a side way, the medical industry itself is incredibly wasteful. We've got, for instance, every single syringe you use, and I use 50 plus syringes a day because they're all single use. The plastic, you have to throw that away. You can't recycle it. There's nothing. It's polypropylene. You can't. You can do things with it, but we don't. And so that in itself has spurred a lot of the, we need to reuse, because we waste so much. That's just a common event in the medical industry. It's all waste. So yes, definitely.
Yeah, it is. I didn't really think about that, but yeah, I didn't even think about hospitals and all that stuff and all the waste, but I guess the vet is probably the same way, all that.
Yeah, it's all single use,
Yeah. That's a massive amount of stuff that you'd go through. I can only imagine it. All right. And then, so now your husband, does he own the practice? Is it his practice?
Yes, he has owned a practice. This practice has been his since 98.
Okay.
He bought it then. So, and it is totally his.
All right. And you've been helping him out for a handful of years?
Yes.
Okay.
Just under a decade.
What got you doing that? What were you doing before that?
So I am originally, I would say I do a lot of IT work. So I do that here. So computers, and I'm an artist. I paint. That's kind of the direction I've always been in. But this was, I can't say there's any special origin to this. It was an accident, and I love it. I love it now, though. It's kind of, there's a lot to it in a lot of different ways, and truly feel like I'm adding to people's lives by doing this, which is, you always want your job to have some sort of point to help others. Well, not everyone, but
Yeah,
I do.
yeah.
I need a kind of a community purpose. So that definitely has helped, and it's been the most interesting job I've ever had. So I'll be sticking with it for a little while.
Good deal. All right. So, and you were saying that your clinic is different than most clinics. Why is that?
Well, so on the level of waste, so we're trying to figure out a way to collect all this plastic and reuse it. We also have the clinic. We're building a clinic right now. We're going to use, I know we've got a solar hot water heater we're going to put in there. We're collecting rainwater, which I know is funny. Some places can't do that. Arkansas still can. So we're going to do that. And so essentially we're just going to try to make that, we're going to augment the power use with solar panels on the roof. Arkansas does not really, I mean, I know, California they'll have bundles of places with, solar panels on the roofs. We don't have that here. So it's kind of going to be a little bit more unique as far as that goes. Okay.
And then, so I don't know, when you get those panels put on, how are they? They friendly to you guys doing that? How does that work? Especially because, it's a business, and now you're in, I assume you're kind of in town a little bit more than your house or your place.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're right smack in the middle. They're not really that friendly about it. They're not, we're going to have to go through some kind of, since we haven't put them up there yet, we have to go through a lot of loops to figure out how many we're allowed to have, what we can use it toward. Like it's, I know we have to do a lot of paperwork regarding that. So, it's surprising, kind of shocking how little they want you to produce on your own, but yep, we're gonna have to face that. So,
oh man, you gotta love it, right? You're yeah,
a lot of control.
Uh-huh. Yep. And how does that work in terms of? I don't know how the veterinarian regulation and kind of work. Is there anything in there that you guys have to go through?
So the only thing for how we need clinics set up at this point, which we're not fully in, but if we AHA certified, so it just needs to be the gold standard of hospitals. Every practice has a specific culture and care, and it needs to foster to that. So those are the things, and that's just for the best for the animal. So we need to be accredited on that level, but that's pretty much it. I mean, the thing about veterinary medicine at this point is it's a lot like how human medicine was several decades ago, where, we don't use a lot of insurance. People pay out of pocket, so everything's cheaper. It runs more efficiently, and, procedures that the same ones you can do for an animal, you do for a person, they're so much less, so it's kind of, at this point, it's a little more free, and that's why I like working in it.
Good deal. Yeah, I imagine that it's fairly freeing like that. Do you deal a lot with, do people have insurance on their pets? I know it exists. Do you ever see it come through?
I think I've got, out of thousands, tens of thousands of clients. I have two that I can think of, and it's just people who want a little extra security, and it doesn't, people pay out of pocket all day, every day. I don't see it very often, and I don't want to deal with it. I hope it doesn't become I'm sure there's benefits, but as we've seen in human medicine, it causes way more paperwork and time spent than necessary. So I hope we don't go full insurance at any point.
Yeah. That's what I was going to ask, how when those come up, like, how do you deal with them? Do you have to go find all the different codes and whatnot, or is it able to kind of do it pretty easily?
Well, luckily right now we just fill out, they give us a form and we'll fill out exactly, every procedure we've done. We give them the receipt, that alludes to that. And then they send it in, and it's between the insurance and the owner at this point. They tell them what they did, and then they'll pay. We don't have to do anything, and we're not equipped for that. I mean, it's just, we don't need it at this point.
Yeah. I imagine that making yourself equipped to deal with that would be a losing venture at this point. Anyway.
Yeah. I feel like it'll make this part of medicine far more expensive than it needs to be, just like with human medicine.
Yeah. Yep. All right. So what kind of prompted you guys to build the new clinic a little more green?
We needed a new clinic anyway. He's had this one since the late 90s. Again, we kind of just, once you clean up your personal life to that level, you really want it to extend to every other part of your life. So there was no reason, we couldn't have a energy sucking building, like feel good about making that.
Have you had any feedback from people, from your customers there? Or?
Well, since it's fairly new and we're in the process, we've had nothing but support. So I think that's what people want. I feel like the trend is going in that direction. You're not going anywhere bad by making it clean and green, so. Yeah.
I think for the most part, you're right. But, I wasn't sure if, if people notice that sort of thing. You kind of like to think that, it will, a few people might pick your clinic over somewhere else just based on that factor, when they're trying to find someplace new.
I do feel like that. I feel like that definitely is something that people consider, along with standard of care and, what you offer. I think the green is definitely going to make, when we finally open it, I think that it's definitely going to make people want to be more a part of that. It's just everyone makes a conscious effort to try to do better. And so I think that's something that people that'll come into play for sure in their choice.
And are you guys going to be able to cut down at all or on like the single-use plastic type stuff? Is there anything you can do about that, or is that kind of industry mandated?
I mean, I think, in my opinion, I feel like I was going to experiment with some kind of, I've never done this before, but I know that polypropylene, which is most of the single-use plastic we have, can be melted. And instead of buying, now again, I've got to actually do this, but instead of buying litter boxes or, because I know you can use cleaning products on polypropylene, I'm like, I'm just going to melt these down and make litter boxes. I mean, because we do a fostering service just started for kittens too, because our community doesn't have any good animal shelter accoutrements at this point. And so we need that, and people need that. And I'm like, I got to make something out of this. So I have collected a bunch of it, and I'm hoping to do something with it. And if I can't, obviously we'll go back to how it was, but I'm really willing to try, because it's a terrible amount of waste.
It's crazy. My wife works, she's an audiologist. And so every once in a while I'll go in and I'll see some of the stuff, I'll just like all the little plastic tips that go on the end of the otoscope and, all that stuff. And you don't think about it like mm-hmm. as a patient, right? It's not something you see one and whatever. Okay. But then like you see these big piles of these things and it's like, oh, wait a minute. It's insane.
I think that's why it's so forgiven in the medical industry, because we want, like when I go to the hospital, I want all of that to be single use. So it's like it's a very, on the end of the client, they're like, oh, please use it only once on me. And that's great. And that's what we need to do. But no one thinks, well, there's hundreds of people coming in here today. And, it's just not something you think about. But yeah.
Well, I think that is part of, I don't know, sort of that sterilized culture, and that in reality, I don't know. I would think that something you could sterilize and reuse is probably just as safe as some of the, things that are supposed to be packaged in a sterile environment. And
I mean, we used to do that. So, like, yeah, a long time ago, not that long ago, really, 30 years ago, let's say, people did we would sterilize blades, blades that you'd use for surgery, re-sterilize those needles. I mean, they were not trying to waste any of that. So, and I didn't see a huge amount of, I mean, I'm glad that we're clean, efficiently, but I don't think that there was a lot of case of infection anymore than it was today regarding that, so.
Yep. All right. You're saying about the cat fostering thing. You guys don't really have, I don't know, that sort of entity in your town, any sort of like a adoption service or anything?
No. So we have, this is kind of a big article in our town of dissent. So a lot of different groups, we've been trying to pressure the quorum court, the JPs to release what we've had. We put our money in there, voluntary taxes to build a new shelter. This has been going on for a decade plus, but they won't release the money. There's over $1 million in there. They don't really let the community know that that's how much money they have, but they're not releasing it. It's hard to get it out. So we've got Animal Services has one tiny shelter. We've been needing to build one for a long time. They're kind of keeping everyone's money. So it's a point of contention in our town. So what we've done is a subject I'm really passionate about, just like private charities in general over public welfare. There's tons of groups who have set up different, fostering or adoption agencies since the town won't help us. And so, yeah, in our new clinic, we're going to have, which we already do. Like I've adopted out 3 kittens in the past 3 months, but I take kittens neonatal to, kind of 8 weeks or whatever. And we have that set up that way people can come adopt because we don't have any other options.
Cool. You got to appreciate that when you kind of take it on your own and do it. It probably runs a little more efficiently than it does,
as we know.
Yeah. We ran into some issues, I think, with our animal control and the local humane society thing for a few years back. I don't know. I've kind of haven't looked at that in a while, but
it's not efficient.
No, it's definitely not. It's pretty awful too when you actually look at the numbers and figure out how many dogs are coming in and how many kennels are available and what's got to happen. Keep those things down, but.
And I don't think they have enough because it's just, local government led. They don't have enough outreach. They don't have any people that are passionate enough to, if you give it to the people and they set these things up, that's where the outreach comes from. Like I've seen the Animal Services, the welfare, they hardly have any money, but these extra fostering groups that, people donate thousands to them a year, like upwards. So, it's way better in the hands of the people.
Yeah. It's, I've seen, we know a few dogs that have been adopted from the South up north, and there's always these like really exorbitant fees, and it's like, man, wow, okay, that's what you want to do, but the money is there, and but it's interesting too to see like the regulations that they see that they have to do before they can send a dog off, all this stuff that has to happen. And it's like, wait a minute, this is what's driving the price of, these dogs in the end. This is what drives it all up. And it's, I don't know, it's, you get rid of some of that stuff and it would just be a whole lot easier to move these dogs out.
And it's not even, the people that regulate it as well in your community, they're not veterinary community. They're not animal professionals. They're political professionals. So they don't really know what is required to make this animal healthy or what it can do to go up. So, it's kind of ridiculous that there shouldn't be anything regulating it from their end.
Yeah. Well, all right. I don't know, any parting words of wisdom, anything you want to share that we didn't talk about, anything that, I don't know.
I guess in general, thanks for having me on. And I feel like hopefully, just a little bit that we talked about, that people are willing to kind of, anything you can do to make your environment a little greener. If you go buy a solar panel, go do, you know what I mean? Go buy some battery storage, but try it out. It's kind of it's a fun life. Or, go get a beehive, raise your own bees, or we talked about, just volunteer in your community and see what needs to be done to make it more efficient. Other than that,
volunteering is huge. Being there for other people when they need you, and not being mandated to be there, not having somebody force you to be there.
Absolutely. That's huge. The language we speak.
Yeah. All right. And if people want to check out your new clinic, is that up online anywhere? Can they find that anywhere?
Yeah, so we have our clinic is animalcarecenter.com, located in Conway, Arkansas. And then the foster service will be set up under, it's a Conway Kitten Club. So those two things are available for anyone to volunteer or to donate, or not the clinic, but the fostering service. But yeah, check those out. They will be running soon.
All right, I'll throw those in the show notes, and people can go check that out. Okay, I thank you for coming on, taking the time today.
Thanks for having me. It's awesome.
Not a problem. Don't you wish Linnea was your vet? I wish she was my vet. I know, my vet's pretty cool, but I don't know. I have to see. Anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you can take the time to go check out what she is doing out there. It's pretty cool when individuals take on things that are often kind of mandated and pushed down, and people take them on their own and do it voluntarily. It's a nice release. Come back next week when my guest will be talking about homeschooling. And not just homeschooling, but talking about his experience homeschooling in Africa. And we'll talk about the whys and the hows and the wheres and all of that good stuff. But I will let him tell you all about it. So come back next week when that episode will run next Tuesday. In the meantime, share this bad boy. Like I said at the top of the show, we're almost there to 4-digit downloads. May not seem like a lot to some of you guys out there, but for me, it's something. So help me push this thing out. Help it to grow. Let it grow organically. Let it grow. Let it grow. Let it grow. Wouldn't that be funny? Just to see Elsa sitting there on the couch, just horking Twinkies down, getting gargantuan. Quite a different movie, wouldn't it? Anyway, guys, I will let you go with that fine image in your mind. Enjoy your February, share this thing, and come back next week. As always, don't forget, get out there, sow those seeds of liberty. Can all reap sheaves of freedom together.